Welcome to Pay Attention, a podcast guiding you from the chaos of the mind to the clarity of the heart. Here's your host, Holly McNeill.
Hello and welcome. I'm coming here live from what's typically sunny Southern California, though you can kind of see the sun coming in. And today, my guest is coming all the way from London. So welcome, Marc, to the stage. Yes. How is the weather in London today? Is it dark there now? It's dark there now.
It is dark. Yeah, my windows are over here, and I have all my lights on. The weather it's actually funny you ask, because it's been remarkable. We moved here end of July, and we've had nothing but good weather. Recently, we've had a little bit more of typical London weather, but yeah. I've enjoyed every minute of it. So
that's awesome. Well, we're supposed to be getting a bunch of rain here, which is, we need rain. But when Marc and I first met, we did a recording, which you're going to hear in a minute, when he was still living in the Big Apple, made the big to London. And you got a lot going on, a lot of courses you're creating and so forth, which we'll hear about some here soon. So sit back. We're going to be in the background today. If you have any comments or questions, please let us know. We're going to come back at the end, and Marc's going to tell us more about what he's got going on. But for now, please sit back, take a deep breath, and enjoy this amazing episode on Pay Attention. Hello, I'm Holly McNeill, the Mindfulness Architect, and welcome to another edition of Pay Attention. When I was a kid in high school, my father asked me what I wanted to be when I graduated. We were building a picture frame for painting I had done. And I thought about my love for art and math, and in that moment decided I wanted to be an architect, to take that creative route. And I'm telling you this story because today we're going to talk all about creativity and someone who started out more in tech, but made that bold choice later on to take that creative route and went so much further with it. So I want to introduce my guest. He's going to tell us more about his program called Make a Mess, which I love. Marc, thank you so much for coming on the program. How are you?
I'm good. It is chef like the cook.
Chef. I was going to ask you before we started.
No, leave it in. Leave it in. It's great.
I'll leave it in because it's messy, humans. Right? I love it.
Exactly.
It's messy. Yes.
We're going to create something beautiful.
In fact, this was a second take to start this podcast. So maybe I should have left that in as well. But before we get to the Make a Mess and the whole idea of finding your purpose and your journey through the creative process and the kind of the messiness in that, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you went from where you were to where you are. I know you've had quite a journey, so the floor is yours.
Fair to say, yeah. I won't give the sort of historical review. I will say that something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's part of this Make a Mess framework and course that we're about to launch, is that creativity is not linear. And what we are doing as humans is creating our lives. And and my journey, I say that in part because I need to feel okay about my journey. It has been nonlinear. I graduated from Harvard, with sort of, the world is supposedly your oyster if that happens. Mm-hmm. I went into tech and very, very quickly found a love for creativity and art. I started I always loved art, so I decided what I'd do is I'd go make money and I'd pay for art classes. And I took an art class and just fell in love with the creative process. Mm-hmm. When I tell other artists, they kind of laugh. Like the thing that convinced me essentially to like leave my job and my career and go back and get a degree in art was the very basic foundation class. And this is for the artists in the room, you're familiar with this, but this is a class where you get a newsprint page, it's 18 by 24, you get some charcoal, and they put like a ball, it's like this big, and they just put it and they put a light on it and they say, okay, render this ball or this cube or this, pyramid. Mm-hmm. And you'd spend anywhere between 3 and 15 hours. Right. And that doesn't sound that exciting, but there's something that happens in the creative process that really kind of wakes you up.
Yes.
And I really woke up. That woke me up.
Wow. And that one class, just that class.
that class, and there was a few other sort of, foundational classes that were
Uh-huh.
basically, sort of versions of that, whether it was color or different materials or that kind of thing. There's the color class where, you have to make a gradient from this to this, and it's got to
Yeah.
be
I know about that.
exactly, and it's got to be perfectly smooth, and you're using gouache, which is, for many people kind of a nightmare.
Been there, done
Um,
that. Yeah.
and I
I don't know if I
loved
got the
it.
T-shirt, but I've been there, done. Yeah. Anyway.
I went to Academy of Art. They would definitely sell you a T-shirt if you wanted to give them money for it. But that really kind of opened things up for me, not just for art, but for this idea that, not to sound like a platitude, but that it isn't ever too late. I went back to art school at whatever age, 25, and I was like, oh, I'm the old man in the room, and
25. Oh my.
I know,
Okay.
I know. but I'm there with a bunch of 18-year-olds who just graduated high school, and
Right.
I'm coming to class wondering why people aren't showing up without homework. I'm like, what are people doing here? Meanwhile, my first round of college, I did plenty of that.
Yes, of course.
But I knew a little bit about the working world. I knew a little bit about how to show up. And I did show up for that course and that degree. And what I learned there, in addition to, some things about making pictures, was kind of how to create your life in a way. And I learned so much from so many of the teachers there. And so when I went out into the world, there's no one path for artists. Everyone I went to art school with they're all doing different things. And so I went into kind of a blend because I had the tech background. I did some like video game work. And then I had another moment where I went to essentially a school. It was called the Illustration Masterclass. And I met other people who were doing, making pictures for a living. Now I grew up on fantasy science fiction books, and I used to sit in the bookstore and just look at the covers mostly, and just like marvel over these like amazing landscapes and robots and dragons and all this other stuff. And it never occurred to me, even after having gone to art school, that like one gets paid to do that. Someone did it.
Right.
But then I met these people. Like I met some of the biggest names and most talented people, the most skillful people who had put their lives into this. And I again sort of opened up and said, oh, I can shift again. I can do this. I can do this. And then it was through that I met someone who really encouraged me to work on my own personal work. And then 5-6 years later, I went into the fine art world. And so it was these constant like it's risk taking in a way, but also sort of leaving things behind. And then COVID hit, and we all had to leave a lot of things behind.
A lot, yes.
Yeah, and I had 2 young kids at home, and it was extremely hard. We were in a very good situation. We had a house out in the woods. It was, by all accounts, sort of a dream place to be. And yet
everything you ever wanted, right?
Everything you ever wanted, including 2 young kids home all the time on screens. And what happened there, again, at this point, I had all these experiences. I'd been kind of in and out of the coaching world for 20 years because when I was in art school, I started, working with coaches in a men's group that I was with. And I thought, well, my wife said, you don't have to go back to making art. And I said, like, that's what I've been doing for, 10, 15 years, like basically the last 20 years I've dedicated to making this career. And I said, well, okay, let me put down the guns here. And she said, because I don't think you were that happy.
Wow.
And that was a moment that I had to kind of sit with.
I've had those.
I'll give myself a little credit that I did sit with it. And I took, and we were, again, very fortunate that, we had our bills paid. And so I took the summer, that whole summer, and really looked at and created a number of like coaching exercises for myself around like what it was that I wanted to do.
Right.
So I did that. I actually applied to a school for art therapy. I ended up turning down those spots and pursued my career in coaching. I went back and I got my training. I started coaching with people. And it's been truly the most creative work that I've ever done.
Wow.
I know that and one of the things that I really loved about talking with you is I think we've both had this experience of having established ourselves somewhere to whatever degree or another, kind of walking away from that or integrating it into our lives in a new way. Like, what was the tipping point?
So for me, I had everything you could ever want by age 34: family, career, 2 kids, beautiful home. But I hit what's called the quarter life crisis, which, a lot of people, they're recognizing that now. And that was a super low point for me. And from that low point, I made a vow to change that super low point that I've gotten into before in podcasts, but I'm not going to get into here. And I started looking and searching for better. And I started to find it. When you put that intention out there, when you intend to creatively, purposely create your life, things start showing up. And, this was 20 some years ago. This was around the time of 9/11. And there wasn't a lot of, I'm sure there was self-help out there, but answers came. And in my early 40s, I realized I had something to say. So I actually had put 2 intentions out to the world, right? The first was to retire before I turned 50, to have the time and space. And that was the first intention, to retire from architecture, from a prominent career. I was working in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, worked for Stanford, and worked in New York City, to retire from that. And the second was to have the time and space to write about what I was learning. So mine was quite intentional. The tipping point happened early on, and it took me a long time to get to the place. But I did make that intention early, and I retired 3 days before I turned 50. So the power of intention, everyone.
The truth is, I think that the lessons that you learned from, if you're paying attention, and obviously that's the name of the podcast. So
thanks for the plug there. I love it.
That was accidental. I just sort of realized it as I said it. If you are paying attention, the clues are often there.
Yes.
And if you can give yourself that time to look at that. The gift that most of my clients give themselves that create the most sort of radical or impactful change in their lives is that time. So, and it's not always like, okay, like I took a summer off. Like I had a client just write to me today, and we worked together earlier this year, and he was in the process of trying to figure out his next step. He's a brand expert, and he was sort of at the top of his game in that world, like working at a big international, agency, boutique agency, like in charge of people, like you said, everything was there. But what we kind of got to in the stillness of our conversations was a lot of it is really around identity work. Yeah. It's around like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be this person who, comes in and does this thing? I've been doing this thing for 10 years, 15 years. Do I want to wake up in another 10 and 15 and say, that's all I did? The answer often is no. And so then it begs the question, okay, so what else might there be? He ended up taking time in the form of taking time to plan. He stayed at his job, because bills are real and you got to pay rent or a mortgage. And he took the time to really plan and to really explore next steps with his network, his communities. He's since launched his own agency. He's on track to beat every metric that we set, 9 months ago or whatever. So it's great. It's a great success story, but it really it didn't come from sitting down and going kind of left brain. Okay, how are we going to do this? We're going to do this and this and this, and it's going to lead to this and this and this. And yeah, there's got to be some of that. But a lot of the work, the sort of secret weapon, I think, of my coaching and of really great coaches that I've worked with is that identity work. It's really around the question like, well, who do you want? Who do you want to be?
I don't know, just a drive. The drive I had, even after I retired from architecture and created the Per Love practices, which I love, and they keep evolving. I was pushing them, right, to try to get to that success point.
I think what I've seen is that a lot of people get to that place and going, oh, wow, I'm here. Okay, this doesn't feel quite like
right.
What I want.
They expect to have this, I arrived, and it's like empty. And so they're looking for what's next. And
it doesn't have to be so drastic. Like you get there and you're like, oh my God, this is soulless. Like sometimes, like I said, like I worked with someone who, similar to you, like has everything, like successful business, owns her home, 2 kids, they're in school, everything's great, lives in a great community. She could live, when we met, she's like, I could live every day for the next 30 years as I'm living today. And it would be absolutely fine. And I think I would be missing out on something. I just don't know what it is. And I think like you said, the quarter life crisis, the midlife crisis, there is brain development that actually happens in those time, which scientists are sort of looking at and seeing like, okay, maybe this
Yes.
is actually a scientific thing that's
Yeah.
happening.
The how did I get here when the prefrontal cortex kind of clicks in and goes,
Yeah.
what
But
the?
how many people, how often, and my answer is really, it really is, as often as you want, or if you choose to, because that time when you're given the opportunity in whatever way to examine those things and to look for, okay, like what else could there be? That time can come anytime. The truth is, I see a lot of people in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah. I think you said yourself that those clues are there if you're looking for them. But how much of it is a choice when you say as often as you want, when you're on automatic pilot, when you don't even know that there's something else out there, that the soul, you said it doesn't have to be so soulless, but that there is, for me, the whole feminine idea of success, of being present, of being aware and awake of the choices you're making and showing up for people, And so I don't know, how do people even know they're on automatic pilot?
So there's ways to do it. Like I mentioned, that client who's stayed at the job and figured out a plan, and when it seemed like they could financially sort of roll things over, they did. And that's one way of kind of managing this. But the work that we did was really around that self-examination. Now we also talked about, okay, like who are you going to talk to, and when are you going to have this plan? When are you going to have we do that work because that's part of the work. But it's in service. It's almost like this strange sort of like one is in service of the other and back and forth. Like we do these things to discover who we are, and then when we discover who we are, we start to do different things, which feeds back into the process.
Well, there is a flow to life, and when you're living authentically, I guess, if you want to call that, or living holding your own power, that you're not blocking, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is about what kind of power you want to hold. Because I've said this already, but it's a space I'm in. Is I love being in a place where I'm not pushing, and just being more authentic and saying what I'm thinking, and not trying to worry about what other people are saying. And when I made those intentions to retire at 50, I wanted to not have to be in that position where I could make those choices. But I get it. I get that, a lot of us we have bills to pay and on all of that. So
there's a great coaching framework around what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's listening to this and is saying, okay, I'm tired of whatever. I'm tired of pushing.
Yes.
I'm tired of, I don't want this anymore. It can feel like a very stuck place because it's grim. You're like, God, I'm in a place that I hate, or this is terrible. I suddenly realize that I don't like doing this work anymore, or whatever, or being with this person, or whatever it is. Great question to ask when you know what you don't want is, okay, so if not that, what would be good? What would be a good way to hold power in my life over myself, over my communities, over my work? What would be a good way to, whether it's interacting, with in your personal life, in your work life, when you start with the negative, you can use that as a launch point for the positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. For me, it was a relief. It was built from my habits and patterns of wanting to be accepted and, not being good enough, and in letting that go. I work a lot in paying attention to what habits you're making your choices from, and letting that go. It was a relief. And actually for me, you're right. It's like, what would be good? And for me, it was the stillness and listening, going inward, especially in this time with everything going on in our country right now, finding that connection inward, and I love it, and it feels great. So yeah, that's a good point. If this isn't what you want, then what is it that you do want?
Yeah.
So life is messy. You have a new program you're launching.
Yes. Make
a mess.
Right behind me.
A mess. Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is a framework that I created around both, my experiences, as a creative, as a founder, as a team leader, executive director, like all the experiences that I had, but also working with lots and lots of different creatives, both people who are actual, artists trying to create artwork for a living, and also people like the client that I mentioned, who's in a creative business. I've also worked with people who are doing things, sort of broad strokes, like social change, creating programs, creating ways of gathering information or bringing together communities to create social change in specifically this country, but sometimes in other parts of the world. And what something that I know in my bones, and this is why I created this program, is that you have to start with a mess. It's funny. I'm now seeing this more and more. I occasionally read bits and pieces off of Psychology Today, and there's a lot of people now talking about how this actually works. Now, my framework, the 3 steps are here: create, destroy, emerge, and it's a cycle. When you're in the create phase, this oftentimes looks like that low point, or just a point of.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So you're in this phase where you have whatever level of freedom to try different things. So, like for me in my journey, I looked at grad school. I looked at coaching programs. I looked at a number of maybe another executive director job. Maybe there's an organization that felt really good.
Yeah. When I hit that low point, I had 2 kids, full-time career, just getting out of a marriage. And so, yeah, it's not like it's been an easy road for me, but yeah, wherever you're at, there's still some freedom.
You got to be in action to really understand what it's why when I work with people, I don't typically I do a free first session, right? Because I want to sort of see if it feels right. And if it doesn't feel right, we don't, it's not a good fit. And it's the same thing for your life. But if you're not actually going and sitting down in the room or trying the new thing or, whatever, you're definitely not going to discover anything there. Because, like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So create is about taking a bunch of shots. There's another great framework called Designing Your Life, where they talk about this life design conversation, or the 100 coffee kind of thing, where you sort of go out and explore with different people, different ideas. There's lots of ways to create. You can create conversations. You can create, meetups with friends, or just a chat with a mentor. Like, you can create all kinds of things, including trying different things with your business. And then the next phase and this is just I call it the make a mess process. It is just the creative process. And the reason I don't call it the creative process is because if I say creative, a lot of people go, oh, I'm not creative. But this is about your life. And we're all creating our lives. Okay, we're now caught up. So the destroy phase, it's a little bit cheeky, but it's this refinement phase. So you've created all these things, and at some point you go, okay, I can't actually do all of these things. I can't actually take everything to the level that I want. So which one feels the best? I can start with what doesn't feel good. I can say what definitely feels good. Maybe there's some stuff in a gray area, and I can start to remove some things from my life or people. I mean, this comes up a lot with my coaches. Like, who are the communities that you're spending time with? How are they supporting, even in their language or activities, the work that you want to do in the world, the person you want to be in the world? So this destroy phase is about letting things go and leaning in to really what's working. And of course, there's mini cycles here. Like, you might still add something in the destroy. You don't have to be rigorous about only doing destroy. And then the emerge phase, this is sort of the purpose level phase, like you talked about. This is, okay, so I've been through this process. I created a whole bunch of things. I've now let go of some of those things because I realized I did them for a year or 2 or a week or whatever, and I just, it's not a good fit for me. And now you get to look at kind of what is left, and that is where the identity work really starts to come into play, because you get to start to say, who is this person who's doing? Let me actually look at what I'm doing. Who is this person? And I'll say up front, this is hard work. I believe in this work because I also do this work. Like, I have an amazing team. We have a community that is for creatives, and they ask me these questions, and I don't always have I don't have it all figured out every time. Like, and this is why it's a cycle, because you figure things out to a point. Maybe you run that for a little while, and then you come back and you say, well, let me try throwing in a little bit of this and a little bit of this and see and maybe those things don't work, and you just go, right. I've done this with my gallery over the last 10 years. We've tried a little bit of, maybe we'll sell this kind of thing. Maybe we'll do this kind of thing. And we've discovered that mostly the format that we have really works. So so the question now is really how we, and over the last 10, 11 years is how do we lean more into that? We've tried other things, but we've
You're talking about
destroyed
this
them.
willingness to try everything, and if something's not working, not stick with it, right? To try something new.
Yeah. And I think what's important too is for people to really examine what try looks like and decide that in advance. Because
Yeah.
most new things don't feel good right away. Like I forget who said this, but like you don't learn a new skill and look good doing it at the same time. Right? So
Right.
you have to be willing. There's a whole framework formula for change, which and a big ingredient in that formula is that discomfort. So if you're creating a bunch of things and it's a little bit uncomfortable, that might just be a good thing. I mean, there's a
Then
there's a
it's
limit,
working.
obviously, but if it's a little bit uncomfortable, if you're not sure and you're like, this doesn't feel quite right, maybe get some feedback, see if you want to try it a different way. Don't immediately get rid of something just because it's uncomfortable, because discomfort is part of growth. It is just part of growth.
Yes, yes, and it's also showing you what you're what you're rubbing up against, something in your subconscious, some belief that maybe you're hitting. But it's interesting that you said that in the emerge phase, is when you do the identity work.
Like I said, it's a cycle, but also, in my experience with so many different people, there's sort of like the big cycle of, okay, I'm 34, I'm 48, wwhatever, and I'm doing a big sort of, reboot of my life or whatever. But there's also smaller cycles, within that. Like, I'm in sort of the big, the capital M make a mess with my business and my career. And in small cycles, we're doing the same process with courses and our downloads and the one-on-one coaching, and we're like we're constantly in
Yeah,
this like
yeah,
okay, let's try a little differently next time, and then stepping back. And the reason why I love having my community and my team behind me is that I actually get that reflection in the emerge phase of like, okay, so like we all look in the mirror and we see ourselves from our own perspective, but to have somebody else say, here's another perspective on who you are and why that's important in the world. That's why I love doing so much of this work with other people.
yeah. You learn so much, and I'd love to keep talking about your program, but we are running out of time. So,
Oh,
so since we went off script, back now on script, let me ask you this question: if somebody is, like you said, in their 20, it's the quarter life crisis is said to hit between 27 to 34, late 20s to early 30s, or even their 40s, they're feeling stuck. And what advice, what kind of one thing could they do, or what's the first step, or what would you tell somebody that, obviously besides, sign up for my free hour of coaching?
yeah.
Somebody listening today.
One of the reasons that I really wanted to join this conversation today is because because of the title of the podcast, Pay Attention. I think what I've seen over and over again with people, I don't think I've seen it, is when someone's feeling stuck or in that, whether it's sort of low level crisis or like, oh my God, something has to change.
Yeah.
Paying attention is really the first step. Paying attention, and whatever exercises work for you. I have a lot of clients who do, journaling exercises, or even just, I do probably more talking out loud to myself on
Okay.
walks
Mm-hmm.
than anything.
People look at you funny, I'm sure.
I live in Brooklyn. No, I'm the least weird thing on the street.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But 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 paying attention and then actually taking the time to name that, whether it's on paper or out loud,
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful. Like I had I know we're running out of time, but I was on a call with one of my team, and she asked me, "Are you?" This was like a week ago. I'm going to be really honest about this.
Yeah.
I was asking her about her work for the team, and are you doing what you want to be doing? And she's like, yeah, okay. Like, I think these are my role's good. And I said, and she said, are you doing what you want to be doing? And I just, without thinking, I just went, no. And then we both kind of stopped and took the time and the stillness and the space. And she gave me some silence, and we got to sort of talk about, okay, so like that was just there. Like, why did I say that? I if you ask me intellectually, yeah, I'm doing absolutely what I want to be doing. But why did I say that?
Yeah.
And we really got to discover some aspects of the work that I want to destroy, that I want to leave behind or outsource to her or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really
Making
beautiful
room.
conversation. So I would say, in answer to your question, yeah, paying attention is really the first step. And if you can take that a step further, name it, write it
Amen.
down, say it out loud, tell a friend, tell your coach, what, your partner, whatever.
Yeah,
But
and what I
actually
heard,
makes it real. And then you have to look at it, and beautiful things come from that.
yeah, and what I heard you say also is, if there's something you can, let go of or trash or give to someone else, delegate, finding that space to create something new. I love it. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Marc Scheff, for coming on today. How do people get a hold of you or your program, your free hour of coaching? Or
Everything, you can find everything at my website. It's marcscheff.com, marcscheff.com. My handle on all the socials is Marc Scheff. So if you're on there, you
you're
can find me
there.
there.
Marc Scheff. Marc Scheff.
Yeah.
That's it. Actually, I did look at your website, and I love the way it's laid out. It's very creative. Yeah, you scroll down, meet the artist, scroll down further, meet the coach. I love it. So great. We can have a link to that in the description. And thank you for reminding listeners and reminding myself why it's called Pay Attention. It is important because we are creating our lives, either intentionally or on autopilot. So and I love it. I love the make a mess idea. And it's okay to let go of things you worked your ass off on for years if it's not working for you, right? This is a journey. We have this beautiful life, and find your joy, and emerge out of the mess, whatever. I appreciate your program and the work that you do.
Well, actually, I sorry. One more thing is when I don't know when this is coming out, but in the next few weeks, we're actually putting out a self-paced course that go through the 3 frameworks for change, including my Make a Mess model, that when you tie them together can really help you through this process. And when I do that, Holly, I'll send you a discount code for your listeners, so you can share that then.
Excellent. And it will be a ways, because I have given myself permission to stop pushing, so I'm only putting a podcast.
You can go now. It's there now, whenever now is.
Yes. Every other week. So definitely. It sounds like a lovely gift. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marc, again for being with us today.
Thank you. This was a real joy. I loved our conversation, and I love this one.
It was fun. I think there's room to have you back. There's plenty to talk about. And thank you, listeners, for paying attention today, for tuning in. And hopefully you can see that there is room, right, to let go of things that aren't working, and question. Find your joy. So I will see you on another episode of Pay Attention. There you have it. It's been a while. It sounds like I love the line, creativity is not linear. So it was fun to go back and listen. You're quite funny, actually. It was fun to go back and listen. And you have. I loved in there when you said that you take parts of your program and you throw it away and you create space for new. So what are you doing today? What do you got for the listeners today? I know we've talked about a program you've got starting tomorrow, and
yeah, I mean, if you're watching, so you can find some of the stuff on the website I mentioned, but we have a website that has all of the things that are kind of on offer. And it is true that if you're watching this live right now, there's about 24 hours, really about 6 hours, but I think I'll leave it open for 24 to join our creative launch course, which is a small cohort program for creatives. And we do a lot of this deep inner work.
I can put a banner for that too. Yeah, if we can put
okay,
that.
There it is. That's the website. In service of living our best creative lives, and doing so in a way that doesn't feel like we're always pushing uphill. People love this course, so we do it about twice a year. And again, if you're watching live, then if you're watching this later, it's closed. But if you're watching it live, you can go there now. If you're watching it later and you go there, you'll also be able to find the Make a Mess course, which since we talked, we did create. And it's I love it. It's 3 frameworks. One that's really about the neurological. Oh, thanks for folks who are commenting. Thank you for the commenting. And so it's one framework that talks about like a real framework for change, like where change happens in your life. There's lots of different places that you can affect change in your life, including, learning new skills, changing your environment, but also some of the inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second framework is about a formula for change. Okay, you're ready for it. What do you need to have in place to actually make it inevitable? Because we all have this resistance in our lives. Like we all have things that push back on us, our job, our friends, our partners, our kids, all these things that push us back into the place that we were. And then I go through in some good depth with lots of exercises through the Make a Mess process. So by the end, you'll actually have practiced it and you'll see how it works in your life, and you can take it to, much bigger things.
Is that the DIY one, or is
Make a Mess is DIY. That's available now and will be available. The creative launch, that closes tomorrow, and that's a live course with me, and I'm coaching you the whole way through.
Nice. And yes, thank you for the comments, and thank you, Marc, for sharing your wisdom. And it's been fun to rewatch that and to see your, what you've thrown away, what you've kept. Life is
messy. Work away since then.
Yeah, and life is messy, and it's really being okay with that, and looking, being okay in the weeds that really helps you find, the flower, the joy. So
yeah. Can I just share? I took some notes during the call because there was some interesting stuff said on the call.
You said some good stuff, huh? Sure, of course.
That was pretty smart. I thought, no.
Just so with this guy, I have a hard time getting him off. He always talks. No, I'm kidding.
It is true. Well, I will say that one thing that's come up for me over and over again is that, and I have yet to find an example to counter this, but I do believe that all transformation is collaborative.
You said, you kind of talk about your team, yeah.
Well, whether it's with your team or honestly, if you're listening to this podcast and you're in collaboration with the audio you're hearing from Holly however often you do it every week. It's important to have that collaboration. And, there's stuff in my courses and there's stuff on my website about finding that collaboration within you, which I think is also important. But I can't say enough about having the people who really understand the journey. And Holly, I think you're one of those people. And I think anyone listening is lucky to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. That is so sweet. And we did not practice this online beforehand, but it leads right into, I do have an awareness hub for online year-round mindful living. So thank you for those kind words, Marc. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and good luck with your course tomorrow. I hope you get a few new people from today. If you're listening and it sounds right to you, sometimes it's like life. It's like when you're ready, things show up. So anyway, thank you again, Marc. And if I'm ever in London, I'll look you up. And
you know how to find me. Yeah.
All right. And
thank you. New Yorker pudding. Yeah.
Thank you, listeners. Go out there. No matter where you're at in your life is messy. And that's part of the journey. So enjoy wherever you're at. Take a look at it. Take a look at Marc's course. And I'll see you next time on Pay Attention.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention with Holly McNeill. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.